Greetings, mortals. Welcome to another session of the Infernal Court in musical hell. I'm Diva, your judge, jury, executioner, and evil split personality. Does anything reek of desperation in a Broadway show as much as stunt casting? Sticking a celebrity's name above the title is essentially producer shorthand for, we know you'll never pay the insane ticket prices for our show under normal circumstances, so here's a big-name star to sweeten the deal. Now, as with most things in life, stunt casting isn't universally bad, and in some cases has yielded excellent results. But in other cases, it's created some appalling concoctions. And what else can you expect when the celebrity in question is Baywatch beefcake David Hasselhoff? Enter our next offender, Jekyll and Hyde. Jekyll and Hyde is the most successful of composer Frank Wildhorn's musicals, which admittedly isn't saying much, but the original Broadway production was on its last legs at the turn of the millennium and had resorted to stunt casting the title roles? Whatever, to pad out its run. After a 6-month turn by former Skid Row singer Sebastian Bach, the producers tapped Hasselhoff to take the helm. The results were pretty embarrassing, and as befits the internet age, that embarrassment was captured on film for the world to witness.
Let us dispense with the niceties.
Agreed. Let's examine the strange case of Jekyll and Hyde. The scene is established by two of our supporting characters, Solicitor John Utterson and elegant old fart Sir Danvers Carew, who describe Dr. Henry Jekyll as a visionary committed to blazing new trails in the name of science. Yeah, so was Oppenheimer, and look how that turned out. And here's the man himself, boldly refusing to give up on one of the patients in his mental asylum.
Good night, Father.
What a twist!
And we might as well get it out of the way right now. Yes, David Hasselhoff is the first and most damning of this show's sins. Lord of Darkness, love him, he is trying his best, but, well...
Your best is not good enough.
His singing is mediocre at best. He scoops his notes way too much, and his vibrato makes him sound like he's riding a flatbed over 50 miles of dirt road.
I will find the answer. I'll never desert you.
Then there's his acting, such as it is. He's clearly trying for driven and passionate, but he ends up looking confused. As Jekyll, he's stiff and boring, and as Hyde, he tends to come off as goofy rather than frightening. There's no real sense of darkness about either personality, which really kills the mood of the entire show. It's a shame Hasselhoff is so out of his depth here because the rest of the cast is really good. Excellent, even. They rise above the weaknesses in the material and give their characters and the story real energy and weight. But Jekyll and Hyde is one of those shows where if the lead role isn't right, nothing else can save it, and Hasselhoff drops the ball, big time. Next comes the chorus to sing to us about the main themes of the show.
While playing the same. But there's one thing I know, and I know it for sure. This disease we've got has got no ready cure. And I'm certain life is terribly hard when your life's a facade.
Did you seriously just try to rhyme hard and facade? Oh dear. Sin number 2. The lyrics can get unbelievably silly. Yes, Leslie Bricusse does have some good credentials under his belt, but when you're writing a Victorian horror show, you probably shouldn't tap the guy behind this.
Who can take a sunrise, sprinkle it with dew, cover it in chocolate and a miracle or two?
Now, I do like several shows that indulge in cheesy lyrics, so they're not often a deal breaker for me. But the lyrics for Jekyll and Hyde stick out in the worst way because they always seem to get ridiculous just when they're trying to be dead serious. For example,
Simon, you knew I had to be free. What I choose to do is decided by me.
Doesn't that, kind of go without saying? This agent of the Department of Redundancy Department is Emma Carew, Sir Danvers's daughter and Jekyll's high-class fiancée. Her engagement to a mere doctor is creating quite a stir in the stuffy Victorian drawing-room circle, in no small part because of the radical experiment Jekyll keeps proposing to his hospital's Board of Governors.
In each of us, there reside two separate natures, two distinct personalities. One dark, one light, one good, one evil.
Oh, I've heard this one. The one that wins is the one you feed the most, right? Jekyll is asking for human test subjects to help with his experiments isolating and controlling man's darker impulses. The Board of Governors does what all pompous authoritative committees do, which is bluster and sneer and generally refuse to do anything remotely radical. But here's sin number 3. The official bad guys aren't necessarily wrong here. The musical sets Jekyll up as this bold iconoclast standing up to the cold, uncaring, and hidebound institution, but the Board of Governors is right to be skeptical about the whole project. What Jekyll proposes is risky. We already know it's going to wind up going bad on him, and his theories raise some very important ethical questions that he's ignoring.
We have the power to divide this primitive duality of man into its separate components, to isolate what is functional from what is dysfunctional, and to control these elements forever.
Isn't he basically talking about the removal of free will? What would that mean for humanity? Would it create utopia, or just a bunch of mindless drones who don't know any better? Do the ends justify the means? Not to mention all the hard-working demons who would be out of a job. Who's looking out for them, huh? A lot of creatures are employed by the evil industry, Dr. Jekyll, and we don't need your nanny-state policies making things worse for Middle Inferno. Sorry, where was I? The musical goes to great lengths to set up the Board of Governors as mean, narrow-minded, hypocritical jerks so that we won't feel so bad when Mr. Hyde offs them. Come on, you don't see characters like that in a show like this and expect them to live long and happy lives, do you? But apart from the bishop, who has a thing for underage prostitutes, none of them really do anything that's actively evil. They're smug and provincial in their opinions, sure, but at least part of that can be chalked up to the late 19th century European upper class they were born into. And they're also kind of right in the end. Jekyll's tampering with the human mind and soul does border on playing God, and it ends up backfiring in a big way. So yeah, Dr. Jekyll's just not having a good day. His bosses refuse to let him chemically lobotomize his patients, and he has to attend a snooty high society party celebrating his engagement to Emma. So his good buddy Utterson takes him to the bad side of town to blow off some steam at a strip club/brothel called the Red Rat. Headlining the Red Rat's floor show is Lucy, a pretty young thing who has a sweet, vulnerable-sounding I Am song and... let me check.
Oh, I suppose you've been up in Hyde Park again listening to all them speeches.
And what's wrong with that? I like to listen. I just want to learn.
Yep, heart of gold right there. Lucy performs a song called Good and Evil for the clientele, which makes sin number 4. This is the weakest song in Jekyll and Hyde's score, and sadly it replaced a much better one called Bring on the Men. Come on, guys, which song would you rather hear from a sexy girl in a nightclub? This one?
Bring on the men and let the fun begin. A little touch of sin, I wait another minute.
Or this?
How you tell evil from good? Evil does well, good, not so good.
That's what I thought. The song is ostensibly about how being good isn't worth the trouble and evil pays better. Try telling that to my credit card bill. But it's really just heavy-handed commentary on the nature of duality and choice that provides an excuse for Jekyll to decide something extremely rash.
I'm a doctor. Tonight you made me realize I could be the patient as well.
Yeah, I'd laugh in the face of a guy who talked like that in all seriousness, too. However, Jekyll does comfort Lucy after her pimp slaps her around, and he offers to help her rather than immediately jumping her bones, so that's enough to endear him in her tender heart. Jekyll returns home, more determined than ever to continue his research no matter what the cost. But first, Hasselhoff gets to mangle his big power ballad.
On my own, this is the moment, my final test.
You guessed it, Jekyll has decided that he must serve as his own test subject. Really, does that ever end well? Some guy decides to cut out the middle guinea pig, and the next thing you know, he's turning into a homicidal supervillain or a giant rabbit or something. And sure enough, Jekyll shoots up and things start almost instantly going south. But not so much so that he can't sing about exactly what's happening to him.
Devours, consumes me, and drives me insane.
After a bit more writhing and scenery chewing, the pouting toddler is unleashed. Yes, Edward Hyde is loosed upon the world, and he uses his freedom from restraint, inhibition, and morals to sing some more and pick up chicks. Hey, everybody's got to start somewhere. Indulging in his dark side causes Jekyll to become agitated and withdrawn, barking orders at the servants and holding himself up in his laboratory all the time. This causes his nearest and dearest to voice their concerns in what is actually a rather nice quartet.
Listen, Lord, don't be unkind.
Luckily, Jekyll is able to take time out from his busy schedule of angsting to receive a call from the girl from the wrong side of the tracks.
Lucy Harris? I'm the one that you and your friend met that night.
Oh, yes,
I didn't recognize you with your clothes on. But Lucy's not there for a social visit. She needs Dr. Jekyll's medical assistance for some wounds she sustained from a particularly brutal customer.
I won't forget his name in a hurry, though. Hyde.
And I know we need to make allowances for live theater and suspension of disbelief and all that, but I still find it amusing that nobody realizes Edward Hyde is just Henry Jekyll with his hair in his face. It's like the music theater equivalent of Clark Kent's glasses. Again, Hasselhoff is a big part of the problem here. He's just not versatile enough to distinguish the two personalities to the point where they could plausibly be mistaken for two different people. Lucy gives Jekyll her tongue by way of payment for his services and goes off to sing another power ballad.
Found someone like me, then suddenly.
Still, it's not Hasselhoff singing. Thank hell for small favors. Back at the actual plot, Hyde comes upon the bishop bidding adieu to his 20-something pubescent hooker. Hyde takes the role of official karma distributor as he pretends to hit the bishop with his cane and lights the stage in front of him on fire. And that takes us into Act 2, which opens with sin number 5, Murder, Murder. This song covers a montage of the next several days as Hyde does away with the people who pissed off Jekyll in Act 1. Meanwhile, the chorus reads about it in the papers and gossips and frets. Oh, and dances with umbrellas. None of the choreography in this is very good, but this bit looks like the Hell Community Theater production of Mary Poppins. No, seriously, I would know. I was in the chorus. I had a lot of fun on that production. Despite the gruesome goings-on, it's kind of hard to take this song seriously, with all the posturing and lyrics like this.
He hates the upper class. He must be on his ass.
But what really bothers me about Murder, Murder is that it highlights something I've always considered a major plot hole. Why does nobody put forth the idea that Jekyll might be connected with the murders? The victims all blocked his research, which gives him motivation, and we've got a lot of witnesses who see a man with Jekyll's height, build, and hair color committing the crimes. You'd think someone would explore the possibility that he's involved. I know part of the whole point of Jekyll is that he's supposed to be this fine, upstanding citizen who you wouldn't believe is capable of such depravity, but the connection between him and the targets of Hyde's murder spree is so obvious that it's hard to believe nobody would notice it. Needless to say, being a serial killer in his off time is taking a toll on Jekyll's psyche.
Are you all right, Dr. Jekyll? You don't seem to be yourself.
What, is that phrase legally required in every split personality plot? Emma expresses her concern in a slightly less cliché manner by getting caught snooping through Jekyll's research. She sees just enough to concern her, but she expresses her undying love and support, how else, with another power ballad.
But now I see fade, and I am here alone.
Okay, the abundance of power ballads in this show is getting to the point where I have to mark it as sin number 6. Yes, it's a 90s pop musical and we have to expect that sort of thing, but Jekyll and Hyde takes it to extremes. It seems like every 10 minutes the show stops dead so one or two people can stand center stage and belt their little hearts out. Individually, the songs are fine, very good in some cases, but as a whole they do tend to bog down the story rather than moving it forward like the music should. Good Victorian fiancée that she is, Emma promises to wait for Jekyll until he's done with his very important research, leaving him to his angst.
His cruelty incarnate everything I've wanted to eradicate from man's nature. And yet, so wonderful is his love of life.
Oh, well, that makes it okay then. And guess what? Time for a couple more power ballads. On the plus side, they're also my two favorite songs in the score, In His Eyes and A Dangerous Game. In His Eyes in particular is the single best moment in this production, thanks to the solid performances of Andrea Rivette and Colleen Sexton. If you can ignore the fact that they're singing about the intense, impassioned glances of a guy whose default expression is this, it's a very effective moment. So congrats Rivette and Sexton, you've just earned yourselves a saving grace. Dangerous Game doesn't fare as well, as Hasselhoff's mugging is at odds with the scary, sexy mood of the song. I'm surprised Sexton manages to get through it with a straight face. So Hyde gets his freak on with Lucy, then goes back to the lab where Utterson finds him. Recognizing this must be the mysterious Edward Hyde, Utterson demands to know what's become of Jekyll. So Hyde decides to show him.
What's the matter? You afraid of science, huh? You afraid of the truth?
Of course I am. I'm a Republican.
Henry Jekyll Jekyll!
What a twist!
Despite all the evidence to the contrary, Jekyll insists he can control the monster within him and it will all be for the best. To be on the safe side, though, he sends Utterson to Lucy while he stays behind and sinks his way through his next experiment. And sets the lab on fire because, hey, why not? Utterson meets with Lucy and gives her some money from Jekyll along with a note telling her to clear out of town. Now finally having the means to escape her miserable existence and the mysterious stalker who's been tormenting her, Lucy immediately sings another power ballad. And thus we get sin number 7, A New Life. The song itself is pretty unimpressive. It's one of those ballads that just keeps getting louder and higher until it's over. And it's frustrating because we're watching Lucy flounce around her room when she should be getting her ass out of Dodge. It puts her on the same level as those slasher movie heroines who always explore strange noises in their underwear. Besides, we already know what's going to happen to her. You don't need to hammer us over the head with the irony of her dreaming of a better day she's never going to see. For that matter, why didn't Utterson stay behind to help her? He knows what kind of trouble she's in, and he doesn't do anything to make sure she's safe? Some gentleman. Sure enough, Lucy has barely finished her last crescendo when Hyde shows up, finds the note from his better half, and stabs Lucy to death. This proves to be the last straw for Jekyll, who was somehow okay with people dying for the sake of scientific progress so long as he wasn't physically attracted to them.
Hypocrite! 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 Hypocrite!
He had it coming.
You really shouldn't wear your diamonds on the street. You never know whom you may encounter.
Oh, I never really liked her anyway.
Sympathy. Tenderness.
No, I was boning her! Oh God, what have I done? Jekyll and Hyde confront each other in a battle for their soul in the 11 o'clock number appropriately titled Confrontation. It's a cross between a solo and a duet that's a really neat concept and absolutely amazing in the right hands. But, well, you know.
Knowing I know that now and forever they'll never be able to separate Jekyll from Hyde.
you managed to get your shirt off.
Jekyll emerges victorious in the scenery chewing contest just in time for his wedding to Emma, which of course goes entirely smoothly and isn't interrupted by anything terrible happening at the most. Okay, you all know where this is going.
Mr. Stride, I trustfully respect your recording the order of business.
And yep, all the unnecessary characters are now dead. Hyde takes Emma hostage, but she pulls the "I know you're still in there" card on him, which puts Jekyll back in control long enough to run himself onto Utterson's sword.
Rest now, my tormented love.
And so, as Emma weeps over the heavily breathing corpse of her beloved, Jekyll and Hyde comes to a close. I will confess that Jekyll and Hyde is something of a guilty pleasure of mine. It's broad and bombastic, but it's also kind of fun in its way, and despite its shortcomings, the score has some beautiful moments. But it needs a strong lead in order to make it work, and David Hasselhoff is just not up to the task. As a result, the material's flaws end up being magnified rather than smoothed over. Therefore, the Court of Musical Hell orders these punishments. For an abundance of painful rhymes and false profundity, we condemn Leslie Burcuss to serve penance writing poems for greeting cards. For interrupting the narrative with an excess of power ballads, we condemn Frank Wildhorn to have his television switch to a Celine Dion concert every 5 minutes during his favorite shows. Finally, to David Hasselhoff. Look, David, as much as I've been ragging on you this entire case, I do have to give you points for effort, and there is something to be said for serving as an object lesson. If this little misadventure of yours can prevent future instances of unnecessary stunt casting, I suppose I could find it in my heart to be lenient. Oh, fire and brimstone it is, then. So let it be recorded. This session of the Infernal Court in Musical Hell is now adjourned.